how often do you talk to your customers?
To your customer.
And people aren't doing it. Like, actually, I did a proposal for this project for a partner program. This company had a big partner network, but not a functioning partner channel. So they were interviewing different solutions for this. And they were like, what would you do? And I was like, I would spend the first 30 days talking to all the partners. And they were like, what you do? Like, I don't know what I would do after that, because I have to collect the information from the partners. And then that's going to influence what I'm going to do next. So I will do something with that, but I don't know what I'm going to do right now. I don't know what your partners think about the system. If all of your partners don't even know that they're in a partner network, that's one solution, versus they know and they hate all of the stuff that you're giving them, so they refuse to use it. That's a different problem. So if you talk to people, you can solve their problem. But if you don't talk to people, you can't solve the problem.
Welcome to the Success Consultancy's Just Great People podcast, the podcast that introduces you to ordinary people who've done extraordinary things. My name is Barry Eustance, and I'd like to introduce you to today's guest. Hi, everybody. It's Barry Eustance here from the Just Great People podcast. I'm delighted to introduce you once again to Tracy Borreson. Tracy and I are going to talk to you today about authenticity, marketing, and the human touch. Tracy, over to you.
Well, first of all, I can go many directions with pretty much anything. But I think the important piece of the puzzle here is that we are living in a globally connected world that has lots of information. So it's funny, actually, I was having this conversation with my mom because I have a 7-year-old. I have a niece who's almost 4. And so at the time of this recording, it's getting into buying Christmas presents time of year. And you were asking all these kids, like, what do you want for Christmas? And there's so many different toys that you can get now. And they're from all over the world. And there's K-pop demon hunters. Like, this is a thing I have no idea about. My son is into die-cast cars. It's like kind of old school, which I appreciate. But it was making me reflect on my childhood, and I grew up in the 80s. And in the 80s, it was like the first time there was a lot of mass-produced stuff, right? So a lot of the kids in the 80s all have the same stuff. My husband and I have like almost identical sets of toys. And so now that we're compiling them, we're like, we already have this. What is this? And so we're realizing that everyone had the same stuff, because there was one set of things, and there was like the one thing that was always like the big thing at Christmas. You had Furbies, and you had Tickle Me Elmo, and you had these types of things. And then everybody had one. And now there's like so much stuff. It's not even possible for all of the kids to like the same thing, because there's too many options. And I was like, the way that society is going is into mass, like even more mass consumption than mass consumption was before. And when our behavior like that, when we're behaving like that from a commercial perspective, we also behave like that from a business perspective. So then our belief is that I just need to consume information. And if I consume enough information, I will know what I need to know. And that actually is distracting from the what I would do point of view. So like when I say authenticity, I mean that, like, what would you do? And we're so overwhelmed by stuff that we don't really know what we would do. So it's actually an unlayering of stuff that gets us back to what would we do. And then when we talk about funnels into business, right? Like, let's harness what we would do into what we would want and create that, instead of saying like, well, that guy did that, and that guy did that, and that guy did that, and that guy did that, so I have to do all of those things. Like, that's the wrong interpretation of the data. That person did what worked for them. That person did what worked for them. It's two different things. You don't have to do both of those things. You have to do actually neither of those things. You have to do what works for you. What works for you can be informed by those things. You can learn what other people do and be like, oh, is that what I would do? And try it on. But there's no magic way.
It's a very interesting discussion, because one of the problems we often see is the overcomplication of businesses, where they're so overwhelmed by the information and the data, and you've got to measure everything. But if you measure everything, nothing gets done because you're tracking all the wrong stuff. And one of the real challenges is actually going. Let's just step back and reflect here and simplify, because I used to fly a pretty complex piece of equipment with 168 computers and about 1 million parts, all flying in close formation at 82% of the speed of sound from the other side of the Earth to the other side of the Earth.
With a whole
And
bunch of people on it that
with a whole
depend
bunch of
on you
people
for
on
their
it who can't
safety.
exactly that sort of thing. The information that was fed to us was actually pretty simple. It was the same information, broadly speaking, at the front end that was being fed to pilots in very simple airplanes. Basically, the 5T instruments, the altimeter, the airspeed indicator, the artificial horizon, the directional indicator, and the vertical speed indicator. They were all there, but they're on one screen to make it even easier to understand. So you didn't have to look away. And then the map was attached to that. And so it's this simplification, isn't it, of information to cutting through all the noise. And the airplane, all those 168 computers, were actually basically filtering out all the stuff we didn't need to know until we needed to know it. And it's a very, very similar situation that you're discussing, but also something we find that when we talk to businesses, they are massively overwhelmed to the extent they can actually be moribund. Where do we go next?
Well, and I think to some degree, there's a belief that that's supposed to happen, right? So, like, as businesses grow, they do by nature get more complex. And so you start having these more complex systems, more complex conversations, more complex human relationships in an organization. We kind of stop trying to make it simple because we assume it's supposed to be complicated. So then somebody comes in and is like, this is complicated. And this is how you deal with complicated. And people are like, okay, I'm at a stage in my business now where everything is complicated. So I must need a complex system in order to like make it work. And we just stop asking the question about like, could this be simpler? And not in the way that like, I don't believe in oversimplifying. Cause I also think there's a very famous advertising campaign in Canada for a company called Staples, and it has this easy button. So and it, you can buy the button. My aunt has one and my son loves it. You press it and it's like, that was easy. And so then you're like, but you're actually now making something that is complex sound too simple, which isn't
Yeah.
helpful either. And so I think I don't even say the goal, but a good practice. I think that a good practice is to be able to look at things and say, like, can I make this simpler? Can I make this customer experience faster? Can I make my sales cycle shorter? Like, how can I do those things? And not to the point where I'm going to trade away stuff, important stuff from my brand, but also to the point where, like, why would we make our sales cycle longer if we don't have to make our sales cycle longer? This doesn't even make sense.
Or put more friction into it. I mean, why would you put more friction into it when actually the object of the exercise is to take the friction out of the system, isn't it?
Well, and this is the thing because there's so many layers now of technology and automation that can take away friction, but equally it can add friction. And so if you don't know what you're using it for, and you just put it in because someone's like, you need a CRM system, then all of a sudden you've created a whole bunch of internal friction that, let's be honest, reflects as external friction in the client experience. And to what end? 30 years ago, all the sales teams were still using their little black book to keep track of the stuff that they were selling.
The
And
Filofax
right? I still love those things. They're
and
cool.
the
But like,
Cardex.
right. The thing is that sales closing rates were higher before. And so there was something about that system that worked better than the system we have now. And you could say we just had better salespeople. This is a training issue. We need to train our sales teams better. Maybe it's
But
possible. That's
is
one
it not
interpretation.
is it not a relationship consideration? Is it perhaps that we've stepped back from, you have a Filofax and a phone, and you would pick up the phone and speak to your prospect and say, "Hi, it's Barry," or "It's Tracy, and how are you?" And just a courtesy call, which was always used to upset people. This is just a courtesy call, but just seeing how you are. But wasn't that more about the relationship building? We've got these automations built into systems now that distance you further and further actually away from that critically important relationship.
Absolutely. And I think in sales, we're seeing that And it is also happening in marketing, but I think because marketers or maybe people businesses in general never really assumed that marketing was customer facing, right? Like since the advertising days of the 80s, people are like, well, marketing just sits back there in a room and they make ads and like that's what they do. They don't touch the customers directly. But if you go back to like the beginning of time marketing, where you had like town criers who would like go out in the street and tell you about things. And people be like, that sounds like a thing. This is now a human to human experience. And so now we've added in marketing automation, we've added in CRM systems, we've taken marketers farther and farther away from the customer. And who's responsible for knowing the customer? The marketing department. They're the one making all the decisions about like what we say to our customers, what our customers want. Like we're doing all of that research. And how can you do that if you never talk to a customer? This is crazy,
Yeah.
right? Like there's so many times where I've looked at these like complex marketing systems and I'm like, how often do you talk to a customer? And they're like, we do customer surveys. And I'm like, nope, not how many times do you send an automated system to collect data from your customers? How often do you talk to your
To your
customers?
customer.
And people aren't doing it. Like actually, I was working on I did a proposal for this project for a like partner program. This company had a big partner network, but not a functioning partner channel. So they were interviewing different solutions for this. And they were like, what would you do? And I was like, I would spend the first 30 days talking to all the partners. And they were like, what you do? Like, I don't know what I would do after that because I have to collect the information from the partners and then that's going to influence what I'm going to do next. So I will do something with that, but I don't know what I'm going to do right now. I don't know what your partners think about the system. If all of your partners don't even know that they're in a partner network, that's one solution versus they know and they hate all of the stuff that you're giving them, so they refuse to use it. That's a different problem. So
Yes.
if you talk to people, you can solve their problem, but if you don't talk to people, you can't solve the problem.
And it goes back to things like the value proposition canvas and the business model canvas, where you're focusing, you're strategizing essentially from the customer's perspective. What are their problems? So, what are their jobs? What are the gains they want to achieve? What are the pains they want to achieve? And what can you bring to that party? How do you get that data without talking to the customer? And I mean, I think this is probably answers part of the, at least partially answers the question: how come we're not, the sales process is not as efficient as it was in the days of the Rolodex and the Filofax?
Well, because
Look
it's
them up on Google
easier.
Facts if you have.
Yeah, if you're not sure what we're talking about, just Google it. Even though all of these things existed before Google, but like you can Google it. And this is the thing too, right? And I have a concern from a like marketing industry point of view that we are now teaching a lot of our young marketers how to use technology to do stuff. So how can I post my post on all of the channels at the same time? Well, that's cool. It's nice that you can do that. But first of all, people who are a startup business or even a small medium sized business, right?
Yes.
So we've got this like new generation of marketers who can send out posts on all of these different platforms, but like all of the platforms are not going to turn into a productive channel. So we don't know what is doing what. We're just doing a bunch of things. And then we want to be cheap. We're always trying to save a buck, right? So instead of a senior marketer, we'll hire a junior marketer. Now we're taking all these junior marketers and just saying, do all the things. I'm not even going to give you time to think, even if you could think, which they can do, but they don't have time to do that at work because they're busy writing grant applications and posting on social media and like managing the CRM and managing the website and developing back end whatevers. And you're like, how is this supposed to be successful? And you don't know any of the thing. You don't know if any of the things that they're doing are contributing to anything from a business point of view, but they're really busy and they're overwhelmed. And so now our brain says we need another one, need another marketing coordinator because this person's too busy to do all the stuff. But no one asked the question about, does it make sense for them to do all of the
Yeah. And how
stuff?
many sales are we closing? How many contracts are we signing?
Right. And then, like, marketing is in particular has gone into a very dangerous zone where CFOs now are like, what is the return here? And marketers are like, I don't know. We have to do marketing. I've read a book once that said you're supposed to spend 20% of your revenue on marketing. Yeah, because it's supposed to drive revenue.
Yes. Yes.
Like,
It's supposed.
don't, if it, you might as well flush it down the toilet. Then just save that money or invest in another salesperson or like do something with the money that is going to reflect on your balance sheet. Don't just throw it down the toilet. This is crazy.
And it is extraordinary that when you look at the return on your marketing investment, because a marketing budget essentially should be an investment.
Yes.
There should be a return on marketing budget, return on marketing investment. How is it calculated? Who's calculating? And it's back to the complexity issue, isn't it? If
Yes.
you're focusing on doing everything all of the time and you're getting more and more people to do everything, but everything isn't actually generating a return on effort and a return on the cost of doing it,
Right.
you're actually better off not doing it at all. Because as you say, it is simply a flushing down the toilet exercise in busy work. Busy work is the work that you do that produces nothing other than
Right.
busyness. I guess it's not just small companies, is it? It's all sorts of organizations are getting involved in this cyclone of activity. And the question is, to what end? How effective is it? Tell me, Tracy, if you were, as I know you do, counseling and coaching organizations, where would you start? And let's go back to some fundamentals. And I know you've covered it, but we've covered a lot of the symptoms. So what's the remedy for this? How are we going to fix this for large, small, government, non-profits? How are we going to make it work for them and help them to get a return on their investment, their marketing and sales investment?
Well, I'm a very big fan of like micro experiments. So when I say micro experiments, there's two important pieces that go into that. First of all, that there's something you can test very quickly. A lot of times, a lot of marketing is like brand building is a long-term activity. Right? These are things that build up over time. If you're talking about an investment, then branding is your RRSPs, right? They're those things you contribute to on an ongoing basis so they continually build. Sometimes they're up, sometimes they're down. That's a continual investment. A lot of times people think because that's so big and it's like consistently being built that there's no ways to test it in little ways. I have yet to find a scenario where there is not a micro experiment available. This is about creativity, people. This is
Yeah.
not about availability. This is about whether or not you choose. Let's test this. And this is not, quick side note about what a lot of marketers refer to as A/B testing. The color of the button on your website is not a micro experiment. It's not going to tell you anything really meaningful. You might be able to say, like, oh, more people click this, but there's so many other contributing factors to this complex system. Most importantly, how people are getting to your website. That the color of the button, this isn't where to challenge your marketing funnel if your marketing funnel isn't working. It's not the button color. That's not the thing that's going to solve your problem. So, and the subject line of your emails not going to solve your problem either. Where a lot of marketers spend a lot of creating experiments. So, first of all, they are easy, but second of all, they are connected to something that is impactful for the business. Because if I do a whole bunch of tests and I say, oh yeah, this is works better than this, but the new better version doesn't increase my impact at all, then I'm still wasting my time experimenting and I can waste a lot of time doing those types of things. So how can you test the critical components of your marketing funnel in little simple, low to no cost ways to collect data so that you can make better business decisions? Now, moving into that, there is a component of what are all the things that we're doing? And there's people and businesses get very attached to the things that they are doing because at some point they probably made sense. That doesn't mean that they make sense anymore. And so I actually think this is why I call myself an advisor, actually, because there's consulting and strategy, but also coaching that goes into this. Is that like, okay, you have been programmed to believe for the past 25 years that you need to have email marketing. And if you don't have email marketing, that your business is going to die. And again, this is actually where bloat happens with big companies because email marketing is relatively cheap. So I might as well do email marketing because I have a big marketing budget and like I don't have to look at all of these day-to-day things. For small, medium-sized businesses, it can be more obvious where these items exist. But okay, so you're doing a monthly email letter that has a good open rate. The open rate's not bad, right? But like nobody clicks on it, nobody buys from it, nobody's been sold from it, right? Like, so why do you do an email newsletter? This is how many resources you're spending on that. The cost to your business in a year of doing email marketing for no return. So if We think email marketing can contribute meaningfully to the funnel. Let's create some micro tests to see if it can. But right now, it would be better for us to just turn it off.
I
And
mean,
then
that's what
people
you
will
said.
see.
I mean, that's in our last podcast. Link to it will be here, folks. Um, um, Tracy was saying, for example, your LinkedIn banner or something simple, change it. It
Who
costs
is going to
nothing.
notice? Even if, so think of the most famous person you know, like you would go to see on LinkedIn or whatever. Would you notice and or care that much if they changed their banner? No, no one cares because you either, if I'm going to follow somebody that I feel like I've built a relationship with over time, I don't care what their banner says. I might be piqued, my interest might be piqued, or I might be intrigued by something that they do, or if they've changed their brand colors or whatever, I notice, but that doesn't change your relationship with that brand. It it's just a thing. So again, like there's these easy ways. I have my clients test their like how they tell people what it is that they do in their tagline on LinkedIn. But I'm like, nobody cares about your tagline. Test it, right? Like, and test it from the point of like, if you read that on your LinkedIn profile, does it feel like a good reflection of you? Or does it feel like you're not saying something or that's the super professional version of that? Or like, what does it feel like? Does it feel like the way you would talk if you were like totally comfortable in a room with somebody you didn't know? If it's not, then like keep tweaking it, keep changing it. And literally, I have a friend, actually I had dinner with her the other week. And so I was like, play with your tagline, right? And so she's been doing it. And I'm like, literally nobody has noticed this except me because you told me to look at it. That's why I noticed. Like, no one cares. No one cares. This is about a reflection of you. And again, once business gets to the point where it would consider itself either like a successful small business, right? Like I'm in the millions of dollars of revenue and I've been in that for a few years. I've got my niche product and customers, right? Like my business probably isn't going anywhere, right? Like we get so concerned that now everything needs to be duplicatable, that we lock down our taglines and we lock down our brand colors and we tell our employees that they have to all use the same banner on LinkedIn. You just like, it's just all of this. No one cares. No one cares. It's not building your brand, right? So individual human relationships is what builds anything. And so looking at the internal relationships within a marketing team, how a marketing team functions with the larger organization, looking at how marketers are talking to customers, how salespeople are talking to customers. If you have a client services team that's onboarding customers, how are they talking to customers? Where are the consistencies? Where are the discrepancies? And do the discrepancies actually add value? Because sometimes they do. And sometimes they don't, right? So again, like this is all of these pieces of the puzzle. It's a investigation. And if we're not investigating on an ongoing basis, and I'm not saying investigate with 100% of your budget or 100% of your time, right? But if you're a tech company, you probably have 20% of your product budget that goes to R&D. Like how much money in your marketing department is going to R&D? Literally, it's our job to research the customers and develop new things. Research and develop.
So if you're a small business, let's assume you're a startup or a micro business, and I mean there was a time back in an earlier epoch,
A
dear
simpler
listener,
time.
a simpler time when you had a file of facts or a time manager and a telephone. Now you're lost in this myriad of YouTube and LinkedIn and Spotify and X and Y and Z, and you go,
And
well,
TikTok and Pinterest and
yes,
lawn
exactly.
signs. And there's still people who print stuff in newspapers. And
Yeah, well,
community
exactly.
newspapers are still
So
big.
you're a fleggling organization. You've got a great idea. You've got a great product potentially. How do you get to talk to the customers? How do you rise above the noise? What is the method that the entrepreneur starting out in business or with a small business can do to break through all that noise and stuff going on that's diverting budget and energy and investment? How do they do it?
So, my favorite exercise for this is if you had to go sell your product or service at a farmer's market, how would your booth look different than other people's? Because a farmer's market, right? Generally, you buy a spot and you maybe get like a tent. Everyone gets a white tent and a table. Right? That's it.
Yeah.
It is a blank space. And there are going to be people walking up and down this street, these aisles, and you want to attract their attention, right? You're probably not going to attract their attention by looking the same as everyone else. Right? Right. So, what would you do? And this is the interesting thing about that is, first of all, most people panic when thinking about having to sell products that way. But like, this is, I found the best path to help people get into the what would you do, right? So, like, if you are selling fancy donuts or honey or fruit, like, what do people do? They give out samples, right? They give out samples. They want you to taste what it is that they have, right? So then they build into their plan a certain amount of product that is going to be used for taste testing, right? And then I go and then I eat the thing and I'm like, oh my God, this s'mores donut is the most delicious thing. I'll definitely spend $8 on a s'mores donut. Even though like if I saw a digital ad for that, I would never do that. Right.
No.
But that's because I tasted it. Right. Now that works for food products and drinks. That doesn't necessarily work for a somebody who's selling a B2B tech software, right? And then someone might also say, well, like, I would never sell my stuff at a farmer's market. I'm like, granted, I'm not trying to tell you go sell your stuff at a farmer's market if you're selling B2B tech, but the exercise is more about like, if I had to just get in front of customers, which is what a farmer's market is, what could I do? How could I turn on my creativity to say, like, oh, I would actually, this is something that would draw people in. If I'm just sitting in my booth doing demos, a whole bunch of people are going to walk by my booth. Or do we have people
Yeah,
out
and
there
actually, I
working
mean,
the crowd?
exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say, Tracy. If you go down, for example, I know this because actually I was a judge on the best stand for a farmers market. In fact, it was the Honiton show in Devon, and it was very interesting because the ones that really stood out, they, as you say, they all had the same white tent. They all potentially had the same muddy grass, except the ones that didn't, that had thought about it. And they had some compelling elements. There was something that really was a bit out of the ordinary. You go, what's that in there? I used to have one of those. I haven't seen that for 25 years. And it had nothing to do with their products. It was just a thing. Right. It was, in today's parlance, clickbait. But the really crucial thing, the thing that really got you in, was the person standing outside, and they spotted your interest. I mean, they used to say in the Far East that the jade traders used to look into your pupils, and when they dilated, they knew they got you. And then they were looking at all the human elements. So all these great organizations and the great traders in these markets have got someone outside to engage you personally on a human level, have they not?
Yes.
Similarly, you go down a really busy tourist destination and you've got people out on the pavements with menus and inviting people in for a drink, as you say. So it's back to the simplicity of the human interaction, the human touch. How do you do it with a tech company is the question, or is it? Or is it the same principle?
I believe it's the same principle. So there are like foundational marketing and sales concepts that are not different now. Again, we have this level of digital interfacing that is actually taking us farther away from customers. Although I'll come back to this because LinkedIn is it's a unique option from a relationship building perspective. But before I go there, I just want to come back to the concept of the trade shows also in terms of if you again, I like trade shows, farmers markets, whatever, and we've all been to one, right? Like you're walking by and there's things that catch your eye and there's things that don't. And so I go to the Christmas market every year locally for me, and they have a like British products tent, right? And I lived in Britain when I was a kid, and so I have like very fond memories of specific candy bars and things like that that we can't actually get in Canada. And so I always go to that. It's got like big British flag outside of it, right? And you're like, you know what you're gonna get when you come in here. So like the advertising is accurate, but also there's, I mean, for the past like 4 years, it's been the same lady who works at the till inside. And she always asks, like, "Oh, what brought you in today?" This is like the simplest question that a marketer can ask, but it's also different again if you're in person. Right? So if I'm in person and I ask you and you're like, "Oh my God, I just
Yeah.
love a flake." Like I can't get it in that many places. And I know you guys always have it. So I come in here and I get them for the stocking stuffers and I get them every year. This is the custom talking to a customer that we were talking about earlier in the episode. Like very often we build up the talking to a customer so much in our head that then we get afraid to go and do it. But like in one scenario, like these people are already here. Talk to your current customers. They're already in. You don't have to convince them to buy anything. Just like ask them some questions. Like innate, be curious, authentically curious, not like go ask a pre-programmed set of questions that ChatGPT gave you. Go ask the questions you're curious about as a person and collect the data. Again, like we can have systems and we can have a survey monkey and we can have a database of all of the answers. And like you go and have one conversation with a customer, guarantee you will get more data
And
than you
actually,
will in 100
yeah,
surveys.
and the reaction from the customer or the prospective customer is quite intriguing. In that, I'll give you an example. Happened to be I went to London and from Southampton Airport, and I used to fly out of Southampton Airport when it was an old airport with hangars were built for the US Navy in 1909, and they looked it. And then they built the new terminal, and it seemed like the biggest thing in the world. And I hadn't been there for 25 years or more. And I wandered in, and I was taken by actually how delightfully small it was and intimate. And I was approached by a couple of people from Prostate Cancer UK. I had no intention of having anything to do with anybody in particular. I just went in to have a look. They engaged me in conversation. They asked a lot about me, but I asked a lot about them. And at the end of it, I not only gave them feedback, but I also was then contributing to their charity. I mean, I felt that kind of emotional connection that I did want to be involved. And it was that human interaction that was the switch from absolutely nowhere, no buying intent. I went in for a completely different purpose. And I think that's so often lost, isn't it? I mean, you've got bots that will tell you what someone's buying intent is, but it ain't going to tell you what someone's buying intent quite like the same as someone who's actually standing in front of you going, this is what I would like, and this is why I'd like it. And yeah, I like you as a person, and I will therefore be happy to assist you and make your life better. And you're doing the same for me.
Right.
It's an interesting dynamic, isn't it, that we seem to have drifted away from, or have we? Question mark.
Well, and again, I think a lot of times then people batch that into this category of building a relationship. And then our brain says, like, building a relationship takes lots of time. So I could just use this automation and reach out to 100 people instead of having a conversation with one. And it's reflected in your sales results, right? Like your
Yeah.
conversion rates. So now, for every one person that I actually have a meaningful conversation with, I could have gone out and had one conversation with one person and it could have been meaningful. And I could have sent out 1,000 messages in the same amount of time, right? And got one, right? So then I'm like, success rate is terrible. Is that what we want? Like 1 out of 1,000 or 1 out of 1 or 1 out of 2, right? Because I'm
Yeah.
actually practicing the skill of having a conversation, which means I get better at the skill of having conversation, which means I get to be that jade seller who can see the dilation in your eyes when you're actually interested in a thing. And
Yeah.
then I can take that to the next level of the conversation because I see your interest, or I can let it go because you're not interested, right? Like this is a skill. This is a skill
It
that I think
really,
a
really
lot
is.
of people have lost. And if our sales and marketing teams do not have this skill, then this skill does not exist in your organization. And you're going to continue to layer in a bunch of technology that is going to take you even
More
farther
automation.
away from the
Yeah,
customer.
exactly. Well, Tracy, perhaps next time we'll talk about how do we get in front of these, how do we create these relationships? What about the resource that we apply to it? And also the legacy skills that seem to be declining and disappearing in the wake of AI and automation. And should we be exploring, this is a question for you, dear listener and viewer, please comments below. Should actually we be doing something with AI that's pretty sensible, really? Let it do a lot of the sort of tedious stuff to free us up to talk to each other as human beings, That would be a bit radical. What do you think?
And I have my opinions. If you listen to this episode, you probably know what they are, but the art of the conversation has been lost. And if we can bring back the art of the conversation, it is only going to improve both sales and marketing and business in general.
That is the topic for the next conversation. The art of the conversation with Tracy Borreson. And Tracy's company is TLB Consulting, Coaching and Events. If you want to speak to Tracy, all her details will be here, or you can contact me and I'll put you in touch with Tracy, and we're in close communication. So make sure you make contact with Tracy or me, and we'll assist you through all of this to take you through the thoughts that you've heard here and beyond. Tracy Borreson, Tracy, always a delight. Welcome to the Success Consultancy. My name is Barry Eustance, Principal Consultant. I just want to talk you through what we do, how we do it, and why it's important to you. We're offering a service that is coaching for business leaders. And in the footsteps of the great coaches, we have developed our coaching program to ensure that you as a business leader feel not only that you're supported and have a full service consultancy at your disposal, but that we're able to speak on a one-to-one basis to provide you with the essential space, the objective insight, and the time to rise above the noise so that you can really benefit from our one-to-one coaching, which is really about a partnership between you and, in this case, me or one of our strategic partners, dependent upon which particular discipline you may feel we need to bring in as an additional resource. So it's a personal service. It's about supporting you as a business leader to actually give you that time, give you the space, give you the opportunity to have time where you can reflect, you can seek independent, objective, informed insight, as you would expect from any professional coach who really understands what it means to build successful and effective businesses. So I look forward to speaking to you very, very soon. Please just call me on the telephone number on this page and we can speak and set up our first meeting together. Thank you very much indeed. So that's it for today's Just Great People podcast from the Success Consultancy. We hope and trust you've enjoyed it. Please join us next time, and please do remember to subscribe. Thanks for joining us.